at 3:05, so it says my clock. So we'll kick this off. Welcome everyone to our very last session of the day. I hope everyone's had a chance to get to some other sessions and learn some new stuff, maybe have some new tricks to take back to your job in your libraries or institutions. We are here today for session 6, meeting your productivity goals with the UnMeeting. I am Allison Barnett. I'm the co-chair for the LAUNCH Conference Committee. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping. I will say, please remain muted to minimize background noise. Y'all know how it goes with Zoom at this point. The session is being recorded. We've also enabled live transcript or live captioning. So if you want to hide that, you can go to hide subtitle on the live transcript menu at the bottom of the screen, so that doesn't keep coming up if you prefer. When we're done, there should be some time for questions, Q&A. You can put things in the chat, raise your hand, or our presenters will tell you how best they want to handle that. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to Brown and Jenny.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope everybody's having a wonderful spring forward day. My name is Brown Biggers, and I'm the IT Operations Manager at UNC Greensboro University Libraries, and I use he, him pronouns.
Hello, I am Jenny Dale. I am the Information Literacy Coordinator at UNCG Libraries, and I use she, her pronouns. And we are so excited that you have joined us today to learn about meeting your productivity goals with the UnMeeting. We are happy for folks to put questions in chat. We're going to be keeping an eye on it. You will sometimes see, and this is probably the same situation for Brown, I'm looking over here, which is where my chat lives, and the presentation's over here. So I apologize if that is disorienting in any way, but that is Zoom life. I want to first start by sharing in the Zoom chat. Brown got it for me. Go, Brown. So productive. The link to our slides. We have just a few slides today. This is a topic that we are both really excited and passionate about, so we are going to be doing our best to watch time. But fortunately, Allison has promised to give us a nice time warning so that we know if we are getting a little too excited. Before we move ahead, we do want to provide a land acknowledgement. So Brown and I are both in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we do want to take a moment to acknowledge the long history and the lasting legacies of slavery and settler colonialism on this land on which we live and work. This Greensboro area has long been the site of meeting and exchange for a number of Indigenous peoples in this area, including the Kiawe, Catawba, Eno, Saponi, Shakori, and Saura nations. So we just wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge the land that we're on and its history. And then we want to hear from you. So here is our poll. We have a very quick poll. It's kind of risky to do this in a 20-minute session, but we're going to try to make it work. So Brown has put the link and the code in the chat. I also have, I think, a weird looking direct link that I'll put in there as well. I do. And then there's also a QR code on the screen. All three of these will take you to the same place, which is a quick poll, one open-ended question and one multiple choice question that we are going to give you a minute or so to respond to. And it just relates to some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So I'll just take a moment, drink some water, give you a chance to answer, and then we'll look at your responses. Wow, people are really sharing hard on their productivity challenges, so I'm excited. Also really excited that besides the 4 people who have to be here, there are 56 other people, which is really fantastic on a daylight savings Monday at the end of the conference day.
And I mean, we're all like trying to push through to get to that nap if we can get one, and if we can't, I don't know what I'm going to do.
All right, I'm going to start showing these responses just for the sake of time, but please feel free to keep answering. So let me pull this over here. I just want to note that someone specifically mentioned naps in their response. So that was right on target, Brown. So some of the productivity challenges I'm seeing: back-to-back meetings, it's too many meetings, too many projects, too much, lots of stuff going on, distracted by other tasks, too many different types of things, meetings that could have been an email. So we have a lot of them, right? Keeping up with communication channels. I think these are all very relatable for most of us. I can't even, like, I give you props for working in your bedroom. Maybe that's a situation where you must work in your bedroom. I would not be able to handle it. Uncovering costs of hidden labor, juggling different tasks and not having continuity, when I don't know what I'm being asked to do, meaning when I don't know how a task relates to the mission and the job. There's some like deeper questions here that we won't get to, but thank you so much for sort of sharing some of these challenges with us. And even if you haven't had an opportunity to share, please continue, because Brown and I are going to go back and look at these later, and we can actually attach the PDF of them to our slides if y'all want to look at them in the future. And then we asked, what percentage of your time would you estimate that you spend in meetings? We've got 2 people who spend 76 to 100% of their time in meetings. That is just the worst. But the majority of us who are able to answer this question are between 26 and 50%. That's a lot. That's a lot of our time spent in meetings. So we appreciate you sharing this with us, and it will come back to bear on our presentation momentarily. So thank you. We're going to get into a little bit more about productivity. And before I turn it to Brown, I just want to mention earlier, before, I don't know if everyone was here for this, but I just mentioned how our presentation connects to Juanita and Suzanne's presentation, if you've got time to lean. There was a lot in there that was really fantastic about the history of productivity, particularly the sort of neoliberal capitalist definition of productivity. And we want to assure you, that's not the definition of productivity that we like. So I recommend looking at their slides and recording at some point if you can. And now I'll turn it over to Brown.
So, I mean, one of the things about these discussions, especially when we talk about productivity, is it's very often, like Jenny said, co-opted into other things. And we don't want to think that productivity is punitive. Like, you're not trying to get more done so that you can do more work. You're trying to get done the things that are necessary for you to get done so that you have time to do other things. And that's a weird kind of way to think about it. But our goal isn't to do, like, just make it so you work more. And unfortunately, a lot of times productivity is measured by how much of your time you are spent working. And so Jenny and I talk a lot about productivity. We're kind of productivity nerds and like organization nerds and stuff like that. And Jenny, I know you mentioned something about what you do on Sundays.
Yeah, so this is, I try to do a weekly reset. And I recently saw this, I think it was probably on YouTube, because like Brown said, we're kind of productivity nerds and we watch a lot of YouTube and read a lot of articles and check out a lot of tools related to productivity. And this person was making kind of the argument that productivity can be seen, or I guess committing to your productivity can be seen as a form of self-care, in the sense that if you are taking time, for example, on Sunday or Monday, to kind of set up your week and figure out what it is that you absolutely have to do, then again, you're not trying to make room for more tasks. You're trying to make more room for yourself and the things that you want to do, things that are meaningful to you. So that if you can use this sort of lens of productivity to help you manage your time well, then it can give you more time for those other equally important ideas and tasks.
So one of the things that we've talked about is, what is the difference between a goal and a task? And Jenny brought something to a conversation we had once, which was very interesting, is that we often tend to think of them as the same. But Jenny, if I may ask you to step in and explain a little bit there, please.
Sure. So I will say at UNCG, and I'm sure this is the same for many of you, especially at state institutions. We do, as part of our work, we have to set annual goals for ourselves that we are going to at some point have to explain and describe the extent to which they were completed. And that is great, right? Setting goals, very important. But we very rarely talk about how to take those goals and make them into manageable tasks. So a goal can be, something, it could be one of those SMART goals, specific, measurable, et cetera, or it can be something kind of big. Like one of mine is often to be a better manager. And that's not something that I can quantify necessarily, but I can assign myself tasks that help me move towards that goal. So one of the issues I've had in the past is setting like big goals for a week, and then being sort of like frozen when I look at those goals and think, well, how am I going to do that this week? How am I going to become a better manager this week? How am I going to, increase my outreach this week? So those kind of things.
Yeah, and that was a big, that was an eye opener for me, because a lot of times I think of goals as like, this is a place I need to get to, but it's really like, it's a direction, and I'm making steps along the way so that I can make that travel. And part of that, and this kind of comes to one of the last things here, is prioritization, because we always want to do more than we can. There's always something that we want to do that we can't do, either because we can't afford it monetarily or we just don't have the time to do it. And so what we have to do is we have to figure out what are the things that we are going to accomplish. Because I don't know about you, but I'm sick of the phrase, do more with less. I think we need to be doing less. And so we have to take control of that somehow. We have to figure out what we're going to do.
All right. And we all have different sort of approaches to prioritization. I think that the point that Brown is making is that probably the most important prioritization that could happen is at a higher level, at a strategic level, institution level, library level, department level. But we do have to prioritize our own time. And that again could be a whole presentation on its own. So here we go. Meetings. Am I right?
So it seemed a common theme, especially through our little Menti questionnaire earlier on, is that people have a lot of meetings, and a lot more than we probably want, and definitely more than we need. We spend an inordinate amount of time in our meetings, and it's really only getting worse. But even though the title of our presentation has the word meeting in it, we're really not advocating for more meetings. We're trying to figure out a way to give personal productivity the same priority that we would give one of these meetings. And like Jenny said, there are ways to improve meetings, but that's another presentation entirely. So what is an unmeeting? Well, we always seem to make time for meetings. Like we always seem to be able to squish a meeting in, and we are always saying yes to meetings that are coming in, maybe even ones that we don't necessarily need to go to. So, but we don't ever give, or maybe we don't give much priority to our productivity, like our planning for the week. So what if we gave our personal planning the same priority that we give meetings? So the idea behind an unmeeting is you schedule it as a meeting. You schedule time in your calendar for productivity and planning for the week. And you schedule it with other people so that you have accountability to other people. It's kind of like a book club, but the book is productivity. And so you schedule it, but attendance is optional. You're attending it by just being there. And if being there is sitting in front of a notepad with a cup of tea for 30 minutes while you're devoting time to your planning, that's the meeting. If you're doing that with people and you're using it to share tactics, that can be good for you. Maybe that's not what you want. Maybe that's what you want one week, or maybe you need more personal time the next week. But by taking up that space, by occupying that chunk of time on your calendar, it discourages people from scheduling time there, but you're also giving that priority to your time.
So we also have a note on here that, sometimes there are conflicts. So I teach a lot in my job, and I have had at least twice where I've had to reschedule the weekly unmeeting that Brown and I have set, which is on Monday mornings, because I had to teach. And, we're trying to protect our time here within limits, right? It would be very complicated for me to say, I can't teach that day because I have this conflict. Let me find another day. It's easier for us to be able to reschedule this meeting, but rescheduling is important, not skipping the meeting, right? So again, still holding that time. I've found that I do a lot better with this than I do when I block off my calendar with things like work on article or, catch up, kind of general things. I don't protect those times. And that's something that I need to work on personally, but I know that that's a problem that many of us have. There was an interesting presentation earlier from NC State, which was the outcome of a big sort of working group about hybrid work. It was really cool. And one of the things that they said, or they talked about there was that they have this sort of set for everyone kind of Friday afternoon focus time. And I think that's another good approach to it. If everyone's agreeing, these are the times that we don't have meetings. But if you're not in a situation like that, which we're not, we don't have that kind of set up at UNCG right now, it is nice to have this option.
And well, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, one of the things that I think really helps me personally is seeing that on my calendar and seeing that I have a meeting with Jenny or others. It helps me really think about, I'm being accountable to myself, but I'm also being accountable to using my time appropriately, even if I'm not in a Zoom meeting with Jenny at the time, and there's just something about the psychology of it being a shared experience, even if we're not literally sharing it at that time, that works very well for me.
Yes, I do definitely think there's a psychological element there, seeing it and, again, sort of honoring it. But when we do share, we like to share cool tools and things that we're looking at. And we are just getting close to the end of time. So I'll just put some links in the chat there. But Reclaim is a calendar tool that Brown has used, which is really a really cool way if you're struggling to kind of set aside or honor times on your calendar, or if you're trying to, form a habit. For example, I know Brown, when he showed me this tool, he had set a habit that I want to walk for 30 minutes every day. And so his calendar magically reclaimed 30 minutes for him every day at different times, often, to be able to walk. I am an avid bullet journaler, or as people on YouTube say, bullet journalist, which I don't think is right. But I do bullet journaling. I've got a link to that. That has been an extremely effective method for me. It took me decades to get to a point where I found a method that was really helpful for me, but that's been great. We have talked about the Ivy Lee method, which is, we have a link for you to read more about it. It's all about choosing 6 prioritized tasks every day. And there's pretty decent evidence behind it. And then Baller to Do is something that Brown found and shared with me that makes use of the Eisenhower matrix. If you're familiar with that, the sort of important, urgent, not important, not urgent, sort of it's a matrix. I don't know why I'm struggling. Yeah. So.
But the thing I like about Baller to Do especially, it's dynamic. It's fun to play with. You can make a list of things, and you can move the items around in the list so that they're relative to each other. But then over in the side, it shows you which one should be the first thing that you're doing because it has the highest score.
And then we do have some references. I know that this is just, I think we have like 1 minute. But we have our Zotero library, which is publicly accessible in case you're like really into reading stuff about meetings. We did some research, but I also will just one last time paste in our slides link. And I realized that I didn't include our contact information on here. So I will add that as soon as we wrap up. And we would love to hear from you. And I don't know, Allison, is there time for like one question? If anyone has one.
We've got time for a question or two.
Okay, we'd love to answer your questions if you have any. maybe we just did an incredible job explaining. Thank you.
Maybe we've just jumped ahead an hour to when the questions are going to happen. We sprung forward, and at about 4:30 this afternoon, we'll get questions.
And this is something Brown and I have already been doing since the beginning. No, I was going to say the beginning of the year. No, since last year. So I see we've got a number of UNCG colleagues here. Let us know if you're interested in jumping in on the unmeeting. It is a good time to. One of my colleagues and I used to do what we called mutually supportive cleaning time. So like my office is a mess, your office is a mess. Let's clean at the same time. So this is kind of like mutually supportive productivity time, but it's on Zoom.
I have a question, believe it or not.
Please do.
Whenever you've scheduled your mutual unmeeting time, and I understand doing it together for accountability, but if one of you decides you need to work independently during that time and the other one doesn't, you negotiate that? Do you just say, hey, I need to just sit with my notebook for a minute, but I'm checking in with you?
I mean, I think one of the things that Jenny and I we can take advantage of the fact that she and I have been colleagues and friends for many years. And so we know a lot about our work styles and the way that we do things. But I would say that there have been times when, like, I know that Jenny is logged on and I've gone and done something else, and I've come in late because I had another meeting that bumped into it, and Jenny was waiting for me there. There have been times that I've logged in and Jenny wasn't there, and I think there was the mutual respect and understanding that it's just like, if they're not here, well, they're adults. They're taking care of what they need to do at this time, and they know that this time fits on their schedule the way that they need it to. And so I don't think there was ever a point where we felt like it was being disrespectful if the other person didn't show up. Now, we are polite and try and contact each other when we can.
And it does help that you know each other fairly well.
Sure,
Yes.
sure.
Yes, that I think that that has been really important for us in starting this. Hillary asked about how we've gotten people to adopt the unmeeting at our library. We haven't yet. That's one of our next steps, though, is we want to try to bring more people in. And again, they don't have to come to the unmeeting time, but I'd love to be able to do something kind of like the focus time that y'all do at NC State. Hillary, I know you were one of those presenters. But just kind of have invite everybody, invite the whole library to this meeting so that people have it on their calendar as a meeting. But not try to have all 100 of us or however many of us there are in a Zoom room talking, because it's just a 30-minute meeting. I don't think we'd get through it.
Well, and I don't claim any brilliance in this, but for years I have blocked the first 30 minutes of my work schedule in my daily calendar simply to keep people from scheduling me for meetings that I walk in 5 minutes late to because I didn't know they were going to be there.
Yes. This is something that I need to do a better job of, because I have my mindset so that sometimes in the middle of the night, students will schedule a consult with me and I'll wake up and be like, I don't have to start till 9:30. No, just kidding. Someone has an emergency consultation that they need at 9 a.m.
So Nora has a good question here about being on the user facer end, where it's times expected to be available to library users on demand all workday. Do you have any recommendations for managing user expectations to allow more time for planning? Well, I guess my response to that, Nora, is kind of the crux of what we're saying here, is that at some point in time, I imagine you schedule meetings either with your supervisees, or your supervisor schedules a meeting with you, or there are meetings scheduled throughout your day that somehow or another you find and attend them. And kind of our thesis is that how can we improve things by making our importance, our self-organization as important as clicking yes on a meeting that we just kind of instinctively do. And so if I were to give you a piece of it, if I'm giving advice or recommendations, I guess it more is the mindset of, I'm going to make this a meeting. This is going to have the same priority as a meeting as if I was meeting with my dean, because I'm going to say yes to that when that comes in. So I'm going to make a meeting, but it's going to be with me or maybe 3 other people or 10 or 15 people. and I'm either going to be in the Zoom meeting or I'm not, but it's on my calendar and I'm committed to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Nora, if it's possible, if you could have like a partner in this, again, it doesn't have to be a real meeting where the two of you meet, but if you have another person involved, I think it's, easier for supervisors to kind of understand, oh, you're in a meeting right now for 30 minutes. They don't necessarily need to know what the whole situation is, but this is, I appreciate you bringing that up, because this really does depend a lot on what your job is. Brown and I have very different kinds of jobs, and we have been able to make this work for us. But one of the things that we often find in just sort of, again, being into productivity stuff is that a lot of productivity gurus work for themselves and have full control over their own calendars and don't have, interruptions or things like that. Yes, I think that it is really important to acknowledge that there are a lot of individual circumstances. And so that was our last question. I know we have gone over time, just as I expected. Like I said, I just get so excited.
I'm excited about the things you're presenting on.
It's just, just get into it. So thank you all so much for joining us today, for hanging in there. Oh, yes, good, Nora, I'm glad.
Thank you to everyone. This is the end, my friends. This is the end of the Launch Conference 2022. We've made it through another one. We'd like to thank everybody for coming. We will have the slides and recorded presentations up on the website. Give us a little bit to work out some accessibility stuff to make sure we can make this as accessible as possible. And let us know if you have any questions, and we hope to see everybody back for Launch Conference 2023. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Allison. Thank you.